समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
In National Interest this week, we are talking about the rising problem that India has with Donald Trump, or probably more likely, his ego. Before I get there, however, let me remind you, my monthly reminder to you, please take a paid subscription. And if you've taken one already, top it up, you increase it. We are not paywalled. We depend on your goodwill and your affection. Please do remember, it's not easy to do journalism. It costs a lot of money. We have very good people. They need to be paid wages. People have to travel. It does not come for free. And anything that comes for free comes loaded with something else. So once again, as I am speaking, you will see on the screen how to go about doing it. It will not take more than 30 seconds of your time. So please do pay up. You have to pay for good journalism. That said, I'm back to Donald Trump and Modi government. Psychoanalyzing Donald Trump is a booming global business. We in India are doing our bit. The only objective, however, is to find a way of surviving him for about 2 more years. I said 2 more years, not 3, because, in the American system, chances are by the end of next year, he will be lame duck because that's his second term as president. Our objective cannot be to cure him. You can psychoanalyze him, but our objective cannot be to cure him. Nobody has a pill or therapy for Donald Trump. India has to look at ways to protect itself from his industrial scale irrationality. To protect ourselves from Trumpian diplomacy and social media, that is how he runs his diplomacy. Diplomacy was done very discreetly, behind the scenes, isharo mein, between the lines. In his case, it's all done on social media in full public view. What it does is, it constrains the other side's space for maneuver. First, we must to understand this, to absorb this, and to find a way of dealing with this. First, we must introspect on the bipolarity within our own establishment discourse. Establishment here means not just the Modi government, but also much of its support base in public debate, from social media to TV panelists and op-edists, people who write op-ed articles, in that order of significance. Social media, the most important. You could start with Modi's rise in the summer of 2014. That's when this establishment was celebrating the end of the 30-year wait for a strong leader to consummate India's strategic, economic, political and moral weight. In short, India's comprehensive national power, or CNP. The first warning shot came from Xi Jinping as his troops came for a stroll in southern Ladakh's Chomar, or the Chomar region, exactly where he was being feted by Narendra Modi in Ahmedabad. Their actions worsened over time. China's actions worsened over time because we saw Doklam after that and then East Ladakh in 2020. On China, however, India has had a long view. The Chinese are like that. It's a troublesome relationship. It goes through ups and downs. We can manage it. We can live with it. Overall, therefore, despite the trouble on the Chinese side, the mood was upbeat. India had arrived, an indispensable power in the new world to which it was teaching multipolarity and multi-alignment. If a Western strategic scholar described India as a powerful swing state, the reaction was, grow up. You aren't talking about Turkey or Brazil. We are already a great power, or almost there. The peak year was 2023, the G20 year. By now, India was the toast of the world, soon to be the 4th largest economy, the pivot of the Quad, even more significant as we were not a treaty ally. We were not a treaty ally and yet pivot of the Quad. We were the only one of the 4 Quad members staring down the Chinese and keeping nearly 100,000 of their troops and heavy equipment occupied along our 3,488 kilometer borders. India was finally punching according to its weight. The parade of G20 heads of state for handshakes and hugs with Narendra Modi at Bharat Mandapam was the high point. India was sermonizing the world, especially the West. Europe was a specific target, partly as an aggressive defense of our own ties with Russia, but also because it played so well with the party's base back home. All of this makes the first pole in this bipolarity in the establishment discourse. We'll now come to the second pole. The arrival of the other pole can be timed with the souring of the US, Canada, and somewhat understatedly Britain ties by the G20 summit. The Niger Pannu issue cast a shadow, but barring Trudeau's Canada, the rest did not make a public spectacle of it. The first evident and obvious setback was then US Ambassador Eric Garcetti announcing that Joe Biden had been invited to visit New Delhi in January for a Quad summit and also to attend the Republic Day parade as chief guest. He cancelled or declined, and the French President Emmanuel Macron saved us greater embarrassment because at the last moment we needed a chief guest. By this time, our bipolarity was evident and growing. All of these were seen as deliberately hostile actions. For a decade, the belief was that the West saw India as a vital, indispensable strategic ally. There was even some acknowledgement of the American help in the crisis with China in both the northwestern and eastern sectors. There was the geospatial intelligence that was provided, also extreme cold weather clothing, and of course, some of the weapon systems that worked, M777 ultralight artillery, the Chinook helicopters, C-130s, C-17s, for logistics, transporting troops to these difficult places with equipment. All of this was bought from America, although at full market price. But there was a sense that Americans had been good allies in this situation. America also repeatedly stated that they acknowledged Arunachal Pradesh as an integral part of India. Now the muscle memory was back. The West was hostile, could not accept the rise of an Atmanirbhar India, wanted to strangle our roots and clip the branches to diminish us into a strategic bonsai. It was delusional to think that the West would accept us as an equal. All this is a belief. It's not what I'm saying. All this is the belief that's been growing within this establishment, the establishment around the BJP and Modi government. From hailing ourselves as indispensable, essential, natural allies for a decade, large sections of this establishment were returning to Indra-era prickliness now, and also that Ekla Chalo Re mindset. The purchase of Russian oil was flaunted as an expression of strategic autonomy rather than quietly letting it be what it actually was, a prudent purchase within the sanction-prescribed price band. It wasn't a defiance of sanctions, it was within that price band. This was a smart business decision. Smarter diplomacy needed it to be kept low-key. To be fair, the boasts of defiance, thumbing our noses at the West, came not from our diplomats or politicians, but from the larger BJP ecosystem. It was a bit like, see, we can stand up to them just as the Chinese do. By around this time last year, the victimhood poll had begun to overwhelm the earlier euphoria. Hasina's collapse was blamed on Washington, liberal foundations, and the evil Clinton-Obama deep state. They certainly helped along what they saw as democratic forces in Bangladesh in the same way as the Arab Spring, but with much lower, enormously lower involvement. We at ThePrint also think, and we said so in this 50-word edit that you see on your screens, that the American foundations, the Democrats particularly, had got too involved in Bangladesh. They had bought the wrong story without adequate understanding, and that was causing damage. But they were not the only ones who brought about that entire change there. It angered the Modi establishment. The collapse in Bangladesh, 5th of August last year, angered the Modi establishment even more as it came within 8 weeks of the election, where its score dropped to 240. 8 weeks of the election result, 6 weeks of the swearing in of the new government. The world was again up to its own tricks and weakening Modi. This hurt us in two different ways. One, the 25-year post-1998 investment in a new American relationship was being lost. Trust was being lost. Second, we became too angry, too victimized to ask how come our diplomacy and intelligence were defeated so easily in Bangladesh. India had made phenomenal investments in Bangladesh, and it wasn't just business, electricity, or even a very open-hearted border settlement. For heaven's sake, India was issuing upwards of 2 million visas annually to Bangladeshis to come to India. Nobody sensed how unpopular Hasina had become or the storm that was brewing. The root fact is that while hostile forces outplayed us in Dhaka, both Bangladesh, that is the anti-Hasina network or Muhammad Yunus's network, and Pakistan have played Washington enormously better than us. This when we've been celebrating the rise of the diaspora, counting the Indian origin individuals among the top CEOs, including top tech CEOs, and some stars in US politics as well. For them to make an effective lobby, our diplomacy has to rally them. The professionals and politicians have left it all to their Prime Minister and his goodwill, to his charm and his goodwill. This is unreasonable and lazy, bordering on arrogance. Otherwise, why would there be no reaction, no pressure, no active lobbying by this super powerful Indian diaspora community in the US over this supposed shift in Washington? The result is this fury of the jilted lover. In this formulation, America is a hostile superpower and we have to fight it all by ourselves. Pakistan is an enemy. China uses it as its borrowed knife, to quote Lieutenant General Rahul Singh. China uses it as its borrowed knife to stab us, and Russia is a weakened force now. That's a reality. Everybody is against us. Even Allama Iqbal, such as he was, wrote, कुछ बात है कि हस्ती मिटती नहीं हमारी, सदियों रहा है दुश्मन, दौरे ज़मा हमारा. The world has been our enemy for centuries. Don't worry, we will fight alone. We've been there before. We are a deeply patriotic nation. Swadeshi Jagran Manch has already said it is up for the fight. What does Trump know? हम दिखाएंगे Trump को. We'll show Trump. This is the second dominant aspect in our bipolarity. The pity is we've jumped backwards into it without taking a deep breath, assessing the new reality and responding accordingly. The debate in Parliament demonstrated that we are still trapped in Cold War rhetoric. The issues of mediation, for example, the government could have handled it simply by acknowledging that in any India-Pakistan crisis post-1987, foreign powers have helped by leaning on Pakistan, by drumming sense into their heads. Foreign involvement has always been there, never after the Shimla Accord, to mediate over Kashmir. Vajpayee even invented a smart description for this: facilitation. That sounds so much better than intervention or mediation. Facilitation. A response like thanking Trump for putting some sense into Pakistan's head and saving Pakistan from self-destruction would not have hurt the Modi government. It would not have angered the national mood. It would have actually made his base happy. It would have been a statement of strength. It could then have just repeated this in Parliament rather than suggest that Trump is lying or insinuate that Trump is lying. Why did it not happen? Because Rahul Gandhi drew the first blood within hours of the ceasefire, saying India had accepted mediation. He based it on Trump's tweets. As we wrote in an earlier national interest, which you will see on your screens, but I will also share a link with you, both text and video. As we said, in that national interest, the Modi government finds it impossible not to react to Rahul. In fact, in that national interest, we had listed 11 examples where Rahul had forced Modi to shift his policy. Rahul therefore can often provoke Modi government to switch their agenda. All of this fed into this enormous sense of victimization. This, when the real establishment, the Prime Minister, External Affairs Minister, Commerce Minister are quiet, prudent, not taking Trump's bait, not overreacting, not fighting tweet for tweet, and are negotiating behind the scenes, hoping to pour oil over troubled waters. The opinion, the anger within their own base, however, is a self-inflicted challenge. It's a self-inflicted wound. This is what we call the bipolarity within this establishment.